Hey y'all, and welcome back to Tab Space. So I am gonna apologize in advance. Your girl's not feeling the best, so might not sound the best, might not look the best, but we here. What better to do than make a video? So, of course, when I read an article, you know who I'm gonna ask for weigh-ins off top. It's gonna be the Instagram. So I asked my Instagram, do you believe that ADHD, do you think that having ADHD could lead to a shorter lifespan? I gave three options instead of two this time. The three options are yes, no, and why would it? Yes got 11%, so that's the least. No and why would it are pretty much tied. I kind of expected, like when I started the poll, it was looking like no was the answer. And then as it progressed, I started to see the comparison, and I understand why. Cuz honestly, the only reason I even read this article to begin with was because it caught my interest. Because like for me, you asked that question or you posed that question to me, I immediately think, why would it? Like, why would that matter? You know what I mean? Like, what is not being able to concentrate and being hyperactive gonna possibly lead to my life being shorter? That's the way I thought about it. I have a lot of friends with ADHD, so that's another reason why it piqued my interest, because it's like, well, read something about somebody else for once. You know what I mean? I mean, I always read something about different mental health, uh, afflictions and things of that nature. But this one, I was like, well, my friends got it. Let me make sure that my friends are going to be okay. I need them here as long as possible. So, ADHD. Okay, the article, I'm gonna start doing a better job of sourcing and like starting the videos off right, because I gotta get it together on that. So the article's called ADHD Sobering Life Expectancy Numbers by The Atlantic. I'm gonna reread that because like the way it came out didn't really sound right. ADHD's Sobering Life Expectancy Numbers by The Atlantic. The way that they kind of separated it, the way I read it originally is really how it reads, but I had to fix that. So, let's dive into if having ADHD would lead to a shorter lifespan. So, the article begins with a synopsis of a woman getting diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. She makes the discovery that a study was done on more than 30,000 British students, and it found that ADHD is linked with a lifespan that's nearly 7 years shorter for men and about 9 years shorter for women. Interesting. Why? So, the findings suggest that the life expectancy of people with ADHD is nearly on par with that of smokers and about 5 years shorter than that of heavy drinkers. This completely shocked me because of the mental health disorders that I'm aware of, because I only know about like a handful of mental health disorders, and there are hundreds of thousands of them. And there are new ones getting discovered every day. Every time that I check the psychology page, I'm surprised because I'm like, there's more? Like, there's more to find? I figured we already figured them all out by this point, but oh, Lord, anyway, so ADHD seemed to be the least invasive of like the mental health disorders that I'm aware of. As far as like, okay, so your attention is messed with this disorder, but I wouldn't think like not being able to pay attention for a long period of time or whatever the case may be would like have any effect on how long you live. To me, I mean, there are times when I have issues concentrating, and that's in no comparison to ADHD, but it's like I couldn't really see the connection. So questions have been raised about the validity of the recent spat of adult diagnoses, some of which were offered through dubious telehealth services that haphazardly doled out prescriptions. So I think they're kind of indicating that ADHD is highly overdiagnosed, and more than likely because when you get on a telehealth to diagnose a person with a mental health disorder, I think it's ineffective. Yeah, like my nose is getting ready to. Ooh, I know I'm getting it bad. Sorry y'all, but when you're in person with your psychiatrist or your psychologist, I feel like you have a different level of personability. And I feel like when you're on camera with a person, you can much more easily fake things. You can make yourself seem like you're doing better than you really are. And you can make yourself seem like you're doing worse than you really are. So, if you, for example, want Adderall and you know how to seem like you have ADHD, you may be able to get diagnosed with ADHD as well as get the prescription. So, that's all I'm saying is that they're kind of pointing to maybe there are not as many people that are diagnosed that actually have ADHD. That said, there's the flip side. There's a lot of people that are undiagnosed that do have ADHD. So, I think that would skew the study a little bit when you understand that. ADHD is widely seen as mild, even mundane. Struggling to focus is hardly the same as, say, schizophrenia, which has been linked to declines in life expectancy. So that's kind of what I meant when I said, like, I would think that one's kind of like less invasive. I guess if you were to do a side by side of like the things you do in a schizophrenic or schizoaffective episode versus the things that a person with ADHD does, you would think like I could see why somebody's life expectancy with the schizophrenia may be lower, but it's not as easy for me to make the connection with the ADHD. So, ADHD is not as innocent as some people think it is. Margaret Sibley, a psychiatry professor at the University of Washington School of Medicine, who is not associated with the new study, told the author. So the good news is that people don't pass from the disorder itself, but rather the habits that come as a result of the disorder. So that was where, like, my brain kind of was trying to get to immediately. I'm like, okay, it can't be ADHD itself. Like, there's got to be something else that's a factor in this. So, yes, it's not just having ADHD, but there are certain habits that are associated with ADHD that could lead to a shorter life expectancy. Some symptoms as well as habits that come along with it. So symptoms such as concentration issues, emotional instability, memory issues, and impulsivity can touch nearly every aspect of your life. And then when I think about that, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I mean, I don't have it, so I don't understand from a person with ADHD's perspective, but I can see from that explanation where, okay, this could lead to this, and then this could lead to this. So researchers have long known that people with ADHD are more likely to engage in risky behaviors, including substance abuse, unsafe sex, gambling, and criminal acts, as well as dangerous driving. People with ADHD also have a higher likelihood of experiencing depression, anxiety, and unaliving. Difficulties keeping up with healthy lifestyle habits, such as eating well and exercising, lead to higher rates of obesity. So these are valid reasons why they came to this conclusion. I could see it now, reading through this a little bit. All of these risks can chip away at a person's life around the world. Having ADHD is associated with lower socioeconomic status. Dang, that was screwing my head up. Lower socioeconomic status. Meaning that because of the difficulties to concentrate, it may be harder to keep a job. If it's harder to keep a job, especially like a higher paying one, especially nowadays with inflation and the cost of living and everything else, if you have difficulties keeping a job due to any mental health affliction, that could lead to you maybe being in a lower income area or all sorts of other things. So, lower socioeconomic status usually could lead to um shorter life expectancy for a multitude of different reasons. I mean, resources are one major thing. Another one is your proximity to maybe the city or places where there are a lot of people, and more people means more problems, things of that nature. So some of the some of the most life-threatening impacts of ADHD may be the least conspicuous, experts had told the author. Missing doctor's appointments, forgetting to take medications, and struggling to navigate the healthcare system can make existing illnesses worse. So if you have ADHD, you could worsen your ADHD with the lack or any of those three things. Or if you have another illness of any kind, forgetting to take a medication or something along those lines could prolong your negative health effects. Prolonging of negative health effects usually would indicate that anything can happen. If you get a cold and then that cold turns into pneumonia, you're putting yourself at risk for a lot of different things. So it's a domino effect. One thing just leads to the next, and then you start to see like, okay, what leads children to be scolded for poor behavior can snowball into difficulties keeping a job, maintaining healthy relationships, and even staying out of prison. Forgetting to pay rent can lead to eviction. The sudden urge to race down a freeway could end in a crash. All these possibilities. The calculations are not definitive. The top line life expectancy numbers are part of a range that incorporates a margin of error. So 4.5 to 9.11 years lost for males and 6.5 to 10.91 years for females. That's the lines that the studies within. And then they basically found an average of those numbers, and boom, that's where they got the, what was it, 7 years and 9 years, or I think it was 7 years and 9 years. So another caveat added to this is that the study population may have been skewed toward people with additional health issues, possibly inflating the mortality risks. So if you have ADHD and some other disease, it wouldn't make the study completely clean, because you're not just testing a focus group of people with only ADHD. And whatever compounding diseases that you have with any disease could lead to a lower life expectancy regardless. So it might, there may be enough people in the study that have something else going on that it could be proven later down the line that this may not be so accurate. So I can't give you guys data without offering the alternative viewpoint. So it's quite possible that the numbers have been skewed due to other factors. ADHD underdiagnosis is common in the United Kingdom, and so it is possible that those who had the diagnosis sought it and were overall more in touch with health services. Perhaps the biggest limitation of the study, however, is that it doesn't show whether treatment helps. Good data on who in the study was treated just was not available. So, there is no telling if these people are getting treatment for their ADHD or if they're choosing to allow that illness to kind of fall to the wayside. If they're not getting treatment versus the ones that are, now that's a whole different study that should probably be conducted so that way we could figure out, is the treatment going to lead to the inverse, or is it going to reverse some of that time lost? So I'm hoping that they can, create this study because I'm interested to see what that shows. But don't get too worried about the data, as diagnosis and treatment can help reverse the effects of this disorder and, in turn, reverse the negative impact on the lifespan. So among the researchers that the author spoke with, there was no question that the treatment would help. In fact, the diagnosis alone is even more important, an idea that transformed fears into hope. Actually, I don't even think that was the author. I think that was the person that we mentioned earlier that was diagnosed with ADHD to find out that her life expectancy may be shorter than she thought. So once people are aware of their condition, they can learn about the risks and adjust their lifestyle accordingly. David Goodman, an ADHD expert and psychiatry professor at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, told the author, I think at this point we're back with the author. If ADHD could be diagnosed and managed, a lot of this would disappear. So, if you have ADHD or any other mental health affliction, I ask that you please seek treatment, because we want you here as long as possible. So there's that. It says certainly research suggests that drugs like Adderall can reduce ADHD's effect on life expectancy. That should provide solace for many Americans. In 2023, two-thirds of American adults with ADHD were on medication or behavioral therapy, or both. So I'm very happy to hear that most people decided to do something to help their mental health affliction. That means a lot to me. Like, I love seeing numbers like that. Keep doing it, please. The earlier a person knows about their disorder and the risks associated with it, the better. In a way, ADHD is like diabetes. When it's treated early, living a relatively healthy life is doable. The longer it isn't treated, the more comorbidities pile up. Heart disease, vision problems, nerve damage, kidney disease, and so on. With ADHD and diabetes, treatment can involve both drugs and lifestyle changes. Most mental illness is treatment, lifestyle changes, and medication. Maybe the medication's not a part of it, and if so, you are blessed. I don't know if enough people understand how much of a blessing it is to either have an illness and not have to take medication daily for it, or to have an illness that you were needing medication for and your doctor has relieved you of the need to take that medication because you've done so well making the changes necessary to get off of it. So these things are not always life sentences, and a lot of us, I think, we get stuck in our head about, oh my gosh, this is going to be the rest of my life, and it might not be. As long as you do what you're supposed to do to be on the right track for treatment, there's a high likelihood for a lot of mental illnesses, not all of them. There are some that are definitely kind of a life thing, and its treatment is a lifetime thing, but that doesn't mean that you always struggle or you always suffer. It just means that your treatment is ongoing. Either way, as long as you can live a healthy, happy life, it's a blessing. So, it is possible undiagnosed and untreated ADHD could lead to a shorter lifespan, but it's likely that treatment can begin to reverse this. If you or anyone you know struggle with your mental health in any way, shape, or form, I ask that you take your mental health seriously. Reach out to proper mental health services and at least attempt to begin treatment and stick with it. It could mean the difference between life and death, or a good life and a life filled with inconveniences caused by a mental health affliction. I hope that this article interested you, and if you made it to the end, comment the brain emoji, because we are, filling our brains with food, and I know I learned something different, something new, And I hope you guys learned something new. And then I want you to tell me what you thought about this. What you thought about the article, what you thought about everything. But I appreciate y'all for tuning back in, and I will see y'all in my next video. Goodbye.